we go. We're back again. Deb is not here again. She left me stranded for I think 3 or 4 weeks in a row now, but that's okay because we have an awesome guest. He is a stand-up comedian. He is one of the hosts of the Fourth and 10 podcast, and he recently had a special come out named Name Brand Human. Nathan Owens. What's going on, man?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I started fumbling at the end there with that intro. I can't even get the name of your special out. But
It's okay. I have yet to introduce a guest on our podcast well. It's like I don't know if it's the yips. I don't know if it's just like the worst running gag ever, but I have fumbled names, intros, credentials, everything. So do
it's
not do not worry
man,
about that.
it's the worst. And yeah, if anybody hasn't checked out your podcast, Fourth and 10, I would encourage you guys to definitely do so because if you love sports and you love comedy, it's the perfect blending of the two things. But if you don't know, Nathan does do the intros and it's way harder than it looks. I don't think people realize because I like pump myself up beforehand. I'm like, okay, I got this. And then I mess up the pronunciation of someone's name. I forget like where they're from. I mess up something. It's way more difficult than you think.
Yeah, that's why comedy podcasts are just easier because you can just be like, "Oh man, got your name wrong. Look at that. What a goof."
Yeah,
So
that's a good call.
a little bit of leeway.
Absolutely. But at the same time, you do a podcast with three or two other comedians. And so when you mess that up, then you know that they're there to roast you as well. So, it's part of the
Yeah,
gig, right?
it's not a perfect system,
No.
but
Hey, before we jump into it, I want to point out right behind I believe it's your left shoulder, you got a baseballism Ken Griffey
I
picture.
do.
I just got that shirt for my wife a couple weeks ago.
It's so cool. I think this is the one that was on sale.
Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
why I jumped on it.
Yeah, I
But
get
yeah,
it.
what pretty much my only growing up, obviously all my favorite players were Braves,
Yeah.
and then Griffey was the only one that was like, okay, I it was the first time I remember rooting for a player that wasn't on a favorite team.
It was hard not to. Like
It
just
was it was ridiculously hard not to. The shoes were cool, video game was cool, just every it was perfect. It was a flawless
oh,
execution of a '90s childhood.
Oh, 100%. Well, I don't know if I can't remember if you played baseball or not, but I played baseball growing up. And I remember when I was playing, the big thing was do you remember that Griffey tee? It was like a long, like fork shaped tee, and you're supposed to like swing through it. I could never do it, but like that was the big thing. It's like, oh, you got to get the Griffey tee. I'm like, all right. I keep banging on the side of this thing, but supposedly it's going to make me swing better.
Yeah, we didn't have anything like that. My dad was very old school. He was like, you hit off a tee and just stuff like that. That probably would have been too fancy. That newfangled technology.
Oh yeah, no, I want to
But
make it very clear. My dad was the same way. I lucked out by having some coaches that brought that to the table. My dad's the same thing. He's like, hey man, I've seen you swing. I don't think the Griffey tee is going to help you that much. Let's stick to pitching, maybe.
yeah, my parents saw pretty early not to invest too much financially into my athleticism.
Yeah, yeah,
Pretty quick decision.
yeah. He's like, let's just work with what you have, and we'll
Yeah.
try and make it. Yeah, I'm in a very similar boat. My dad was very kind, but you can tell by the look in his eyes. So, anyways, and I want to point this out too, man, because I know my younger brother's listening. You're not going to appreciate this, but he's actually a huge Dodgers fan, and so he was
Mm.
thrilled from the gift that came from you guys this offseason and Freddie Freeman, and it just keeps getting better and better for him too.
It is. I will say this. I did not feel petty about the Freddie Freeman thing.
Sure.
He gave us a World Series.
Yeah,
He left on the highest note you can ever ask a player to leave on. Then though, when he had that week, the weekend that he came back,
that was tough.
and he's crying, there was a part of me that's like, yeah, pretty special, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool environment. Yeah. Wow, man, if only you had a chance to, and then he fires his agent and you just I've never been through like a super nasty breakup. So
Sure.
this is the closest thing I have to like seeing an ex not doing great
Right.
and feeling self-validated, which
Yeah.
isn't I don't it's not good.
Sure.
It's not a good thing to feel. But there was a moment where I was like, yeah, grass isn't always greener, is it, bud? No.
Yeah, no, that was I remember talking to my brother. I feel like that was it was a weird sports moment, right? Because that was a tough weekend for everybody. Because
Yeah.
as a Braves fan, you didn't feel great about it because, like, oh, if there was some deception there by the agent, then it's like, oh, okay, we could have probably had him. And the Dodgers is like, well, now we have a dude that doesn't want to be here. And then Freddie Freeman's crying on the field, like nobody really won. I'm a Giants fan, so I'm like, well, like we still kind of got screwed over by that whole thing too, because now he's in the West and we have to deal with him all the time. So no one won. No one won.
Nobody won.
Yeah.
No, except for people making money.
Then
Everybody who made money won.
yeah. Yeah.
All of us that are trying to enjoy the sport, we lost.
Yeah, no, 100%. But anyways, I could talk about that forever. But
Yeah.
um, like I said, I already kind of alluded to it. We like to talk because it's called Connectable. I like to share how I'm connected. And just like I mentioned to you earlier, we had David Perdue on the show not too long ago. And if you listen to that episode, I'm connected to Nate the same way. I've been a fan of their podcast for a long time. I love sports and I love comedy. And so when I found this podcast, I think I was following Fourth and 10 for or Fourth District first.
Mhm.
And then when you guys created that, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I love this combination. And all of you guys are hilarious. So it's a fun listen while I'm at my, my 9 to 5. It helps bring some joy
Yeah.
to the mundane.
Thank you. That's very nice to say. I will say the secret is like David and Damon, my other co-host, so talented and just so funny. It really isn't. It really is crazy.
Yeah.
Like there are times I look to the left and look to my right, and I'm like, oh, this isn't normal. Like finding this many talented people this close that you connect with. Like that was it's been really cool at times. So like kind of step back and look at those guys
Oh,
and be like,
100%.
oh, this is really cool.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you're deep into the comedy world, but I listen to plenty of comedy podcasts, and I'm not even going to mention what I'm talking about specifically. But obviously, you think, oh, comedians, they're fun, they love life, and they get along. Unfortunately, that's not the case, right? Like, I've seen plenty of situations recently in the comedy world where people are trying to sue each other and they're getting upset at each other. I'm like, man, this is a wild thing that's happening. And so it is a cool thing that there's three of you that get along so well and can, and especially that dynamic. I mean, and you guys have been doing podcasts for a long time. I've been on here before with, I'm lucky that I found a co-host that, I've kind of vibe with, because
Yeah.
it's not as easy as you think. You're like, oh, just hop on the mic, talk to someone, and then, you're done. Not that easy. So the fact that you guys found three people that have a pretty good dynamic is amazing.
Yeah, because you can go listen to those early episodes. They're rough. Like they're
Yeah.
they're bad. And the couple times we've had guest hosts or guests on, which have all really gone well for the most part, there still is an element of like catching up and getting on the same page and like hitting a cadence with somebody else that it is very I mean, just the simple thing of like not talking over each other.
Right.
Like it's very difficult to not talk over each other but also not leave a lot of dead space. Like it really, like it's a bit of a dance. So
Oh, 100%.
once you do find people that can do that, it's like, yeah, I'm clinging on to this for dear life.
Yeah.
Like
No,
yeah.
100%. Well, and luckily nobody well, yeah, I'm not gonna say that. No, I don't think anybody on this podcast, any guests we found on this podcast has had a problem. I know Deb and I, my co-host, we've done a different sports podcast, about sportsmanship and stuff like that. But we had some guests that it was tough. And what makes it brutal is they're like, before you start recording, they're like, oh, I've done a ton of these, we'll kill it. Like, perfect. And the mic turns on, they freeze. And it's like during the headlights, like, what happened to the confidence? It just went out the
Yeah.
window. And then it's like this weird, you're trying to pull all the information out of them as much as possible. And then you find that you feel like at the end of it, it's like, how much did I talk? I had to talk the whole time just to make up for them. And then it feels awkward. It's almost like, when you have, a big family and you invite a significant other into the family for the first time, you
Mm.
kind of feel it out, right? Because it's like, okay, can they keep up with us? Do they have the same kind of humor? Am I going to
Yeah.
offend them? And that's what it is like with the podcast. It's a little bit of a family, and if they can't hang, it's very awkward.
That's a great way to put it. Because
Yeah,
there is an element of like, can you hang? But also like, what are we doing wrong?
right.
That like somebody else comes in and is like, hey, that was weird. You're like, it was weird. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought I gotten
Yeah,
used to that. That might
man,
be more with the family stuff than podcast stuff.
yeah, right. Well, yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, that's what happens too with those family things, and I'm sure you've had this happen. You meet someone for the first time, they either bring like a friend to a family get together, or like I said, a significant other that's pretty new to the whole situation. And then as soon as they leave, as soon as the door shuts, it's like, hey, we got some things to talk about. Like, is this person gonna be able to stick around? At least that's how it is with my family. There's definitely that, like, hey, what do you guys think? And if everybody is on the same page, one way or the other, that's either really good or that person's
Yeah.
probably not gonna be allowed to the door again.
One of my favorite awkward moments in every relationship that you get to watch is if you're at a family wedding and somebody has brought a date and they start doing the family pictures.
Yeah.
Is like, are you go like I'm sure it's miserable to go through,
Yeah.
but it's so much fun to watch. Of either, are you gonna tell them no, or maybe like the bride said no because she doesn't want a random person,
Right.
or do they understand it? Like, hey, we're just kind of like, I'm not gonna push to be. It's just, it's so to watch all those conversations have to happen
Yeah.
in the moment of like the other family walking away,
Right.
and one family, like, you have 10 seconds
To
to
figure
have
it
this
out.
entire silent conversation.
It's so
it's,
funny.
it's just great. If you're not involved, there's no wrong answers. It's like, it'd be hilarious to look back in 15 years and be like, isn't that the girl that, like,
Yeah.
stole your identity? Like, is that,
Exactly.
didn't she rack up a bunch of credit card debt for you that, oh
He's
man,
like,
but
"Mm-mm."
yeah.
Yeah, no. It's I've experienced that before. Well, and then like you have if you have someone that's, a significant other that, they want them to be a part of the picture, then you kind of like tell them it's okay. If they're in this picture, it
Yeah.
puts more pressure on them to get married, right? It's like this person better
Mhm.
stick around because otherwise they're in this moment forever. And so
Yeah.
you better make this work. I don't care
Yeah,
if you
because
hate this person, figure it
because
out.
this picture is not going anywhere.
Right.
So
Exactly. It's going right up on our shelf for
yeah.
everybody to see all the time. I don't have to explain that every time. It's funny. My wife and I, this past June, celebrated our sixth year anniversary, and so we went back to watch our video. And there is a situation. I don't think my cousin listens to this, but there's a very sweet at the time it was very sweet, right? Like there's a shot of him and his girlfriend at the time swinging the swing. They're not together anymore, and they probably so that's always in the video. There's like this very like they're just swinging in the swing, enjoying the evening, hanging out, and it's like, well, now every time we see that, it's like, hey, you remember her? Didn't go so well. So I'm sorry she's in our video.
we we found out about a cousin's breakup because we had a group chat. A lot of my cousins lived in Chattanooga, so close to Atlanta, so we would all hang out there, free place to stay, all that stuff. So occasionally a girlfriend would end up in the group chat, and it was just very funny because I didn't know this at the time, but whatever we were using, I don't know if it was an app or whatever, notified you when people left.
Okay.
So one morning, myself and all of my cousins woke up to a notification that one of my cousin's girlfriends had left the group. And we were like, all right, I guess
It was too
it
much.
makes it easier than like telling everybody, I guess. But
Sure.
it was like, hey man, everything okay? Is this a new phone situation or
What is going on here? Oh
what?
man, that's brutal. Yeah.
So yeah, that was
Yeah. Well, something I mentioned to David, and I want to get your insight on this is, and I've heard this from a lot of comedians. I wish I could remember who said it. It might have been, I think I was listening to something that Chris Stefano was talking about, and he was talking about something that a situation he got stuck in, and I think it was like Artie Lang just left him on stage forever, and it was like it was supposed to be 10-minute opening, and he left him up there for like 45 minutes, and he had no material. And so he said something that I thought was funny. He's like, it's funny when other comedians can watch comedians bomb on stage because it's incredibly
yes.
awkward. And it kind of feels the same thing in that situation. Like you're watching this breakup and they're basically bombing in a relationship, and
Yeah.
you get to see the whole thing unfold. But like, tell me a little bit about that. And we'll go back in a little bit to hear more about your whole background in comedy, but like the bombing thing. Like I want to hear what's your worst bomb, the most memorable bomb, and is it a fun thing watching another comedian bomb?
It all depends. I think there are types of bombs.
Okay.
And I think there are bombs where material is bad, and then there are bombs where the crowd doesn't like you.
Sure.
And then there's, combinations. So in the moment when you're bombing with new material, it's not necessarily as funny, because it's like I'm throwing stuff against the wall, like I'm maybe trying out new stuff, like
Sure.
all that kind of stuff. But then if you bomb and the crowd just doesn't like you because of either there's 100 different reasons that you could do that. There is something hilarious to watching that happen, and to being on stage and be like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, as divided as our country is right now,
Sure.
like 60 people piled into a room from different backgrounds, and all have made the same decision, which is that I am not funny. And it's like there's a bizarre, like, this is kind of a special moment. Like,
It's a good point.
this is crazy, but it's very funny to watch comics panic. They'll hit that first punchline that usually gets a laugh, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then you see like a fight or flight kick in.
Yeah.
And those are very funny. There are shows where every comic before you is bombed, and so you're just like, I guess I'm next, and that's like a fun, like
Yeah.
that's a fun hangout afterwards.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, the only time that it's like the absolute worst is when you're the only one that bombs,
That's tough.
which I have done with David and Damon. We were traveling with the podcast, and I bombed. I was the only one that bombed on this show in North Carolina,
Okay.
and then we had a 7-hour drive back. So,
Oh man.
and I took the first shit. It was my turn to drive back. So like I had just bombed. I'm the only one that bombed, and then I'm just behind the wheel of a car. I was like, all right, 7 hours of just darkness and road.
Just the saddest feeling. Now,
And
where were
that was
you?
rough.
Where were you in that lineup? Like what
So
order?
I went second.
Oh,
So
got sandwiched
Damon,
between two.
yeah, Damon went up, and he had to work. It wasn't the best. It was a college show, which are very kind of bizarre crowds at times.
Sure.
Damon had to work, but he got him eventually. Damon did pretty well. I go up there, and just for 15 straight minutes, it's just nothing.
Yeah.
And then David gets up, and he finishes out the show fine. And then just all hop back in the car. It's like,
Oh man.
because we've bombed together before,
Yeah.
and it's kind of fun
Sure.
afterwards to laugh about it. But this one, it was just like nobody really wanted to say anything. Like, so, but
Just
you don't want to like break the tension, because you're like, this was miserable. Like, I
yeah.
don't want to talk about it either.
Right.
And so it takes you about like 15 minutes to like kind of plow through that.
Man.
But
Yeah, and that would be tough. I mean, I've gone to out here in Sacramento. They had at Sacramento State. They had the San Francisco Comedy Festival or Comedy Showcase. It was some kind of like competition, and it would always roll through Sacramento and make a stop there. And it is a weird, it's a very strange thing. It's very different if like you go to like Punchline in Sacramento versus that comedy show. Like it is a
yeah,
bizarre crowd. Like you can just feel it. Certain jokes just don't. Certain
yeah.
they're not gonna fly at a college. I don't think.
And then yeah, comedy competitions are also weird,
Sure.
where it's just like it's so subjective.
Yeah.
Who even though, like, how do you even win at comedy?
Right. Have you done
Like,
one?
it's just I've done a couple.
Okay.
And each time I have to go, because I'm a very competitive person.
Sure.
And each time I almost have to go in it at like I'm too cool for this, just to save my feelings on the back end.
That's smart.
When I did one comedy competition where, like, as I'm driving, because we all carpooled together. As I'm driving, I'm like, I'm driving three funnier people than me.
And they were in the competition too?
They're in the competition too. I was like, if the competition is just in this car,
Yeah.
like, I'm not winning.
Yeah.
Like, who knows who else is showing up?
Yeah.
So you have to kind of temper your expectations there a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are very weird shows.
Yeah. No, I can't even imagine. No, I can't even imagine. No, it's like I said, for me, not being a stand-up comedian, but loving stand-up, the bombs can be funny. I've gone to a Thursday night show, which I learned is a terrible night to go to a comedy show. because there's just it's a bizarre crowd, and I went with my wife a
Yeah.
little while ago. It wasn't full, so there was already kind of a weird energy in there. And then I can't remember. I'm not even gonna say the guy's name. I can't remember. Wouldn't say it. But I mean, yeah, the opener, the feature, and the headliner. Everybody bombed,
Mm.
and it's always awkward when at some point someone's gonna do it. Like, hey, you guys with me? Like, oh no, we're not. We're not with you. Just
Yeah.
like you said, plow through, man. But yeah, it's tough sometimes. But um, you know, it's still a fun story to tell.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Not for you guys. Not for you guys.
It's one of those things that, like, it's a good time. It's a fun time to talk about after, with some distance.
Sure. Yeah.
It's one of, yeah, a broken bone story is funny later,
Right.
not while you're getting stitched up by the
Right.
doctor. It's
Yeah.
not funny
Writhing
in
in
that,
pain.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But you're like, later this is gonna be pretty good.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. That's a good
That's
way of
how it
putting
is.
it. So okay, so let's go back a little bit because I just kind of jumped in with you. You're
Yeah.
making this easy, man. So, um, how did you get started in comedy? When did you start? Why did you start? And kind of just give us a little bit of the background of how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I started a decade ago. So it was 10 years ago. I was in community college after getting my GED, and I hated it. I hated school so much. I felt so weird as like an adult with homework, and it was like I had to do some remedial classes, and like so I was a little behind. And I was like, it's gonna take me 3.5 years to get an associate's degree. And then I was like, then I gotta do this again somewhere else to get like an actual degree. And I just remember thinking, like, there's no way I can do this any longer. I did
Yeah.
one semester. Which meant it's like, all right, if I'm not gonna do college, I have to figure something else out. So 20 years old, or 21, and basically I was just like, all right, what can I do that I have time to like recover from, basically.
Yeah.
Like, just what's a risk that I can do, something I've always wanted to do. And comedy was on that list. And it sounds so dumb to say, but like I Googled how to become a stand-up comedian.
Really?
Because I had no idea.
Wow. Okay.
I had no concept of like how you do it or how you get better at it, or anything like that. And so then when I heard like open mics are a thing, and then it was such a weird concept to me of like you just sign up to do it. And I was just like, that doesn't make, there's no like audition, there's no like tryout. And they're just like, no, here's a list, put your name down, we're gonna call your name, and then you
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
And the first time I did it, enough of my friends showed up to support that it went well.
Okay.
And I remember thinking, amazing. Like I've got this. I tried it once and I did great. Like I
Yeah.
can, like this is incredible. I'm a prodigy.
Yeah.
Like I can't. And it was like I was on cloud nine. It was
Yeah.
great. I did one. Like I did 4 minutes. Like I was supposed to do 5. I remember I wrote what I thought was 7 minutes of material. I blew through it in like 4.
Yeah.
No concept of any of that. I'm just like, man, I got laughs. This is great. The second show that I ever did was at a comedy club that was attached to a go-kart track.
Wait, what?
And yeah,
Really?
it was attached to a go-kart track and like an arcade, like a Dave and Buster's kind of thing. And it had a comedy club attached to it that did an open mic. There was no actual mic. I don't
Oh
know.
no.
I don't know where it was. I don't remember this. And so I wrote a bunch of, because obviously so much material went well. I was like, put that on the shelf,
Yeah.
you know. So I wrote
Yeah.
all new material and bombed so hard with apparently such miserable, terrible material that like the host caught me in the parking lot.
Oh no.
And he was like, it was somewhat encouraging where he's like, hey man, I'm gonna let you know that's the worst set I've ever seen. Like that was terrible. Like that's one of the worst bombs I've ever seen. But that means it's not gonna feel worse. So
That's
like
not bad.
good news is you've hit ground. Like you're at rock bottom now.
For the second show.
For the second show, you've
Okay.
hit rock bottom. Most people hit it first show. So and then he's like, so if you do it again, just know like it'll never feel this bad. It'll get close, but that was the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh.
And I had like two friends that went with me to this show, and like I faked asleep on the way home to like not talk about it or anything. Like,
It's a good move.
yeah, it was miserable. And then yeah, I think I got to a point where I just didn't want to tell people that I wasn't doing it.
Hmm.
Like
Interesting.
I should have quit. Like I was bad for long enough, but there's a stubbornness and an arrogance that I think you kind of have
100%.
to be bad at it. And it was like, I don't want to tell people because they're gonna ask, because I posted a lot about it early.
Yeah.
And so of course people are gonna be like, you still doing that comedy thing? And like it just
That's the
I
worst. That comedy
my
thing.
stomach turned like thinking about like, no, like I did it a couple times, like
Yeah.
it's political. Like I didn't know like what I was gonna do. Like
Yeah.
I had no idea. And then yeah, to speed up the story, and 5 or 6 years later, I'm doing the podcast with the guys. I'm living an hour out of Atlanta. I have like a sales job out there that I hate. And David and Damon pulled me aside and they're like, hey man, if we're gonna do this podcast, like we need you to be all in.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, you kind of seem like it's a hobby. You're not really growing as an artist. And like we were setting up out of town shows to like travel together. And they're like, we're not putting our names next to you on a poster if this is what you're gonna do. Um, and it was great. It was eye opening. And then the craziest thing is the very next day at work, I get pulled into the conference room by a couple other people, and they give me almost the exact same conversation.
Really?
Like, hey, you're not bought in on the culture here. Like, you show up at 9:01, you leave at 4:59.
Yeah.
Like, do you even want to be here? Like that kind of stuff. And I remember going, no, I don't. Like, I don't want to be here. Like,
Yeah.
please get
Yeah.
me out of here. Um, And then so eventually, Dan Duncan, who's the fourth kind of a floating member of the podcast,
Yeah.
he just told me, he's like, dude, get it, like find a job. Whatever it
Yeah.
takes, find a job. I'll house you in Atlanta. Like just do it. So found a job, indoor playgrounds.
Ooh.
Dan and I figured out rent,
Okay.
what I could
Okay.
afford, like what they could provide. And
Yeah.
then yeah, I finally moved to Atlanta in 2015.
Okay.
Um or 2016. Anyway, um, so yeah, I mean that was really it. Was like, and it is with anything of like just finding a community of people that I think will leave you behind. I think there's something to that
Yeah.
of like, hey, if you want to be associated, like we will leave you behind,
Right.
but also we know like we don't have to.
Yeah.
So I think like putting the decision on me is essentially what they did. And David and Damon have no recollection of that conversation being so intense. They
Okay.
were like, yeah, we just thought we were just kind of chopping it up after. And I was like, no, y'all kind of laid into me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 11 p.m. on the street corner. I remember being freezing cold. It was February. And they were just like, hey, if you're doing this, you need to be on stage like this many times a week.
Yeah.
Like we need you writing more jokes. Like we need you doing, but like we need less excuses. And they were like, look, if you don't want to, it's fine. We'll keep doing the podcast, and you can hop on when you can, and we'll just keep doing Damon and David will just keep doing comedy. And I remember just thinking it sounded miserable to
Yeah.
not like be in this world.
Right. Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said though, man, about this idea of, yeah, it's an interesting balance because if they're willing to leave you behind, but they don't want to, and they know that
Mhm.
you can keep up with them as far as like going on that journey, like you can carry your own weight and go with them, but they're not going to drag you. because then
Yeah.
that starts having that trickle down effect of now it's going to affect their artistry, their
Hmm.
creativity, their progression, because they're having to bring someone along with them. But they're like, if you can run with us, then we want you to, be a part of this. Like I love that. I love those conversations. I think it's important, especially when it comes to like when it comes to art, I think, or anything that you're passionate about. Like I think you have to have those conversations. And I think if you're not willing to hear that about the thing you're passionate about, like it should make you question whether or not you're really passionate about that thing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially because Damon at the time is a father, three young kids, like, so his time is valuable,
Yeah.
and so there was an intensity of like, I cannot afford to put my time somewhere that it's not as valued as it should be.
Yeah. I get that for
Because
sure.
he's like every show I do, every podcast I do, that's minutes away from my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a whole nother angle of like, yeah, man, like we're if you don't want to do this, great, but we're leaving you in the dust because we have our own careers
Right.
to think about, and we have our own lives and families. And so yeah, it was a life changing chat on the corner.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so yeah. I mean that's kind of it, and really been pushing harder, since then, and now 10 years in, released a special, and
Yeah.
hopefully you continue to grow in that kind of that way.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to talk about the special too. So
Yeah.
name brand human. I'm not going to jack it up like I did before. Name brand human. Um, I know that the specials, I think something that people don't realize about specials, and I don't even know it to the full extent, is it's a long process. Like it requires a lot of money. It requires there's a lot of different like the camera angles, filming, editing. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes. It's not like you can just put up a GoPro and just film it. I mean, you could, but it's not
Yeah.
gonna be great, right? There's a lot that goes into it. So how many years of development? Like what was the whole fundraising process? Like how long did this whole thing take?
Yeah, so I think like I going into my ninth year, I was like, I kind of want to have a special in my 10th year.
Sure.
And one thing I'm gonna reference David and Damon a lot, so I do apologize if people get sick of hearing that. But
It's all good.
what one thing we've always kind of said to encourage each other is like, if there's not a seat for you at the table, like you learn how to make a chair,
Yeah.
or you start your own table. So we're getting about halfway through my ninth year. I don't have buzz. I'm not in conversations, that kind of stuff. So it is like, all right, well, if I want a special, then I'm going to have to release it. Like I'm gonna have to make it. I'm gonna have to push for it. Um, so I found a local production company, Urbana Ave, that's here in Atlanta. That's phenomenal. That we'd worked with before, and that I had worked with outside of comedy.
Okay.
So I talked to Skylar Smith, who directed it and produced it. Um, and we very spoke very briefly, and he loved the idea of it. He's wanted to try it, so he gave me their price. I did crowdsourcing to make it happen, and tried to be honest with people, be like, hey, I'm not PBS, like I can't send you a tote bag, I can't.
Tote bag,
Like
yeah.
it's basically like I just need I just need help.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, like I will thank you and credit you,
Yeah.
but, but
Yeah.
like this is me just straight up asking,
Yeah.
and people were very supportive, and
That's
other
awesome.
comedians pitched in, and we raised the money a lot quicker than I thought.
That's
Um,
great.
and so then from there it was just about honing my hour. I found a venue in Chattanooga that let me do it there for free because they didn't have anything going on.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was great. The room was a perfect room. Um, Urbana Ave did an incredible job. They did all the cameras, all the directing, everything. I was involved so little in the editing, which he sent me like a first draft, and I was like, I think we're good.
Yeah. Wow,
Um,
that's impressive.
it was crazy.
How
But
many
yeah,
how many shows, how many takes or tapings did you do?
so I just did one.
Oh, one shot. Nice.
One shot. Part of that was the venue. I only had one shot,
Okay.
but
Some
I,
pressure.
it is some pressure, but also, and I don't know how this balanced out, but talking to other comics that have shot specials,
Yeah.
a lot of them were like, I bombed the first one
Right.
because I was in my head, or that's the one all of my family members showed up to.
Ah, that makes sense.
There were certain elements of like that where they were like, I think it's almost better that you're just doing one.
It's
Like,
not, yeah, it's not a bad way of looking at it. I mean, it's like you can't, it's like that, like using fear, right? It's like that whole, it's like, you guys are comic book fans, like that Dark Knight Rises scene, right? Where he's got to jump, Batman,
yeah,
Bruce Wayne's got to jump from the ledge. Hey, man, can't keep doing this with the rope. Either fall or make
right.
it. Yeah.
So
I'm comparing
that's
you to
what it
Batman.
was.
Yeah.
I know, I appreciate that.
Yeah. No problem.
That's that's the highlight of my week. I don't care how,
There you go. I'm glad
how
to hear
the
that.
rest of the week goes. But yeah, that was the mentality. So did that, had some help get the word out in Chattanooga. So I had a fun crowd. Um and then I released it on YouTube and Spotify, just anywhere where I was like, I just want eyes on it.
Yeah.
I just need I need the most discoverable way to put this out.
Yeah.
Um and so yeah, we're still cold emailing, still sending, still sharing the link and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I'm very proud of how it turned out. And it just, once again, just I think it was a reminder of like, if you're trying to do something insane, just take a little bit of stock of the community around you.
Right.
Of like, I mean, Skylar and I had met a few times on different shoots for different stuff. And then it was like one conversation and he was like, this sounds great, I'm in. Um and then the venue was a comic that I'd met in Chattanooga that runs it and books it. And he was like, yeah, we don't have anything this weekend. We can get it to you for free, which is incredible with the price.
Wow.
So it was very much like, you can't ask favors all the time, but
Sure.
if you take stock of like who's around you and like, all right, I can cash in these favors. And also just kind of being at peace with people do want to help people that they care about.
Yeah.
So that was where it's like, it sucks asking for money.
Right.
It's miserable, but then you go like that, sometimes that feels in my own head. Where
Sure.
it's like, if you have a friend that you care about that's like, hey, I need $5 to do this super cool thing. It's like, yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Like, so I think like getting over that, swallowing a little bit of pride, and then trying not to project my own insecurities on
Sure.
that process.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, I'm very proud of how it turned out.
That's awesome. But if you guys just pause the podcast right here, go check it out on YouTube or Spotify, you said, and then come back and
Mhm.
listen. But yeah, go out and support that because yeah, I love hearing stuff like that, and it is cool that you can get people involved. Well, I think when you have people that are willing to donate and contribute to what you're doing, I think it just kind of continues to build up that tribe that you have of your fans, the people that follow you, and they can take ownership of that as well. It's like, oh yeah, like it's almost like a pride thing for them too, right? Like, oh yeah, we were a part of making that happen,
Yeah.
and they can point to that. Again, it's kind of like the family pictures, like, hey, but in a positive way. It's like instead of
Right.
saying, hey, that's the ex girlfriend that, like you said, tried to steal my brother's identity. It's like, hey, that's the guy we really like that guy, and luckily he stuck around in the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like people getting in on the ground level
Yeah,
of, my career. And it's very weird. Like, as a comedian, there is a part of it where it's like you're almost a small business person,
yeah,
and just you are your product.
mm-hmm.
So asking people to invest in that is bizarre, but you do realize you're like, oh, people do like this product. And I'm still doing this for a reason. And I just, I think getting over my own insecurities projecting on other people is something I struggle with all the time.
Yeah.
And this was definitely the toughest thing. But like I said, you gotta have take stock of that community around you. And people are much more willing to help than you give them credit for.
That's a great point. It's a weird thing. I think everybody's experienced that from
Yeah.
from time to time. But yeah, I agree. I think people are sometimes looking for an opportunity, and when you give it to them, it's a huge thing for them. Like it's a huge positive
Mhm.
impact in their life. So I think that's awesome, man, that you guys were able to put it together and that it turned out so well. Um, Let me ask you this, kind of just going in a different direction. I asked David the same thing. Obviously, if you're a fan of comedy and you watch stand up comedy, you've noticed, I'm sure, that typically there's like a stool there and a comedian has a drink, right? What is your drink of choice? Is it the same thing every time, or is it something that rotates from show to show?
It's usually water.
Just water, okay,
Just water. I have a lot of anxiety,
okay,
and there's a part of me that's like, if I have something carbonated up there, I know I'm gonna choke on it.
yeah,
Like it's something I'm gonna get some sort of tickle.
yeah,
There are times if I do a show like at a brewery,
yeah,
I will take one of those drinks up with me,
okay,
but rarely do I take a sip. I'm not like a cool looking alcohol drinker. So
okay,
like if I would like I love whiskey, I love bourbon,
yeah,
but like I know I would make a face if I like brought that up with me. Like it's just water is just the safest.
there you go,
It's not gonna surprise me. But it's the drinks are always after my set. That's usually
gotcha.
when I partake.
Okay. Yeah, I'm always curious. I would love, I mean, I figure I always, you see water, you see other like
Mhm.
alcoholic beverages as well, but I would love to see someone out there like a glass of milk. Can you imagine? Like to me that sounds like a nightmare because that would be incredibly thick. But I bet
Yeah,
someone out there does it.
those lights are warm. So you would it would definitely have to be like a DIY show.
Yeah.
It could not be like on a nice big stage.
Yeah, just like
Um
warm milk.
yeah, and it would also to me depend on what kind of milk.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like for some
That's
reason skim feels better than whole.
yeah, I think
If
all of it
somebody
sounds
was up
gross to
there
me.
just up there just with a glass, maybe the milk mustache, like somebody wiping that off in between punchlines like
Right.
that. But I mean, weirder things have worked for comics.
Sure.
Nobody
Sure.
has nobody has been the milk comic yet.
All right. Well, I'm waiting. I
So
feel like it's gonna
yeah,
happen at some point, and I don't think it's gonna
maybe
go well.
maybe I'll try an alter ego. It'll be my Larry the Cable Guy. I'll just be Nate the Milkman, and
There you go.
I'll carry six of them up with me.
I like it.
I'll finish all six before I get off stage. That'll be
Yeah, don't sit in the front row of that show because I feel like that's not going to go well for anybody.
no, and that'll just be one show. I'm not doing two shows
Yeah, you
on
got to knock it
nights.
out in one. Yeah,
Just one shot.
and the Larry the Cable Guy thing is really wild. I remember when I first heard and found out that the accent was not real. I'm like, no, that's gotta be a rumor. And then you start doing the deep dive on YouTube. It's like, oh, that's real. It's a
Yeah,
fake thing. And then you realize his name is not Larry. It really messes you up at first. I'm like, oh, then you look at stand-up comedians like, Dave Chappelle, is his name really Dave Chappelle? I don't know.
yeah. There are very crazy stories. Larry the Cable Guy. I think it started because he would call in to sports talk shows
Yeah. Yeah.
as Larry the Cable Guy, and I don't know if he was getting laughs or was just more comfortable, but it does. It's a testament to how strong a laugh is.
Yeah.
Where it's like if I'm getting a laugh as this other dude, then that feels better.
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm gonna do.
Right. Oh,
Um,
100%. Well, you know, what I
yeah.
mean, so I have two toddlers, two young girls. And do you know how many times I've ran my head into the wall because they got a hilarious laugh? I probably have CTE. Doesn't matter because that laugh is so good. I don't care.
Oh yeah, and the kid looks sincere
Oh, 100%. It's that
because
like they can't
they're
control it.
they can't control it. It's so involuntary. Also, kids are mean.
Yeah.
They'll tell you immediately. They're just like that was the dumbest thing
Yeah.
I
Oh
have
yeah.
ever seen.
I've gotten that
How
before.
old? How old are
Uh
the kids?
3.5 and 1.5. And I've gotten the looks. They're
Okay,
not saying it specifically, but they are
yeah,
looking at me like, all right, pops, this
but
bit's done.
you're getting opinions.
Oh yeah, but just by the looks for
That's
sure. The
what,
3.5-year-old a little bit more. The words are starting to hurt a little more. You know what I mean? And it's like now it's like she's like, nah, daddy, this is not working. I'm like, all right, well. And then you just
yeah,
walk away. It's like that's probably the closest I come to bombing until I got a comedy show, but it's in front of a very small crowd. And it's like, well, and I kind of like, walk with my tail between my legs and walk away
yeah.
because I've been shamed by these two. And like I said, the 1.5-year-old, she's not saying full words, but she's looking at me like, kind of like the eye roll, like, oh, we're still
Yeah.
doing this. All
Oof.
right, he's still here. All right, guess we
Yeah.
got to endure this a little longer.
I will say it would be nice to put certain crowds down for naps. Just be like, you know what, y'all are kind of grumpy. Why don't we? You don't have to sleep, but like you need to rest for about an hour, and then we'll talk again. Like that would be a nice feature.
That's not a bad
Some
idea,
shows.
because I
Yeah,
agree. Some of them could use a nap, a
yeah.
nice nap for sure.
I'm
How,
gonna talk to some bookers about that.
yeah, just a little like a little juice. Maybe that's where
Yeah,
the milk comes in. They get a
that's,
nice warm milk,
that's
put them down for a nap, and then they come back.
do 11 a.m. show,
Yeah,
and then we'll pick it back up at 2.
yeah. You just
So
bring in a bunch of the local like kindergarten teachers in for that. They just kind of
yeah,
wrangle everybody up. I mean, they're pros at the nap time thing. Bring them
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah,
If I start bombing, flick the lights on and off a few times. Like that's fine.
yeah.
I'll play heads up 7 up in the middle of my set if that'll help.
Hey, yeah, it's a the more that's a game that I think would have been tough for me at a certain age, because I mean, obviously, the older you get, the more tired you are in school, right? Like middle school, high school, college. It's like sometimes you're really fighting that sleep. If I was to play heads up, 7 up in one of those classes,
Oh
gone.
yeah, that's
It's
it.
that's night time. I don't care how many
Yeah.
times they say my name. it's it's over. It's over.
Like the idea of cheating and heads up 7 up to not move.
Yeah,
You're like, no, I'm still I'm here.
I'm here.
Heads on the desk. I'm out.
Yeah,
There's
done. Yeah,
yeah.
you can't play that at a certain age. Well, speaking of, okay, let me ask your opinion on this. So, my brother and I just recorded an episode last week that released today, and we were talking about our top 5 favorite arcade games. I'm guessing that you spent some time in arcades over your youth, and maybe
Mm.
even now, like you said, Dave and Buster's. Do you have a couple that come to mind where you're like, this is like the king of these games?
Oh man, definitely. It's one of my dreams to have NBA Jam
Oh, yeah, okay,
in my house, the arcade version.
yep,
If I had to go 5 off the top of my head, NBA Jam,
okay,
uh, Ninja Turtles.
that was on my list.
That
Turtles in
that was
Time.
on there. I wasn't allowed to watch this show growing up, but the Simpsons arcade game,
Oh,
it it
that
was
was fun.
incredible.
See, I didn't watch the show either, but I loved playing that game.
Yeah, the arcade game was great. And this was a little late to the arcade game world, but NFL Blitz on the
Let's,
arcade,
yep,
and then man, that fifth spot. I don't know. Like I think one of the easy answers, one of the classics. Pac-Man's always fun.
sure.
The original, Mario. But
How about any of like the non video game type games like Papa Shot, air hockey, things like that?
I'm terrible at air hockey.
I am. Me and my brother said the same thing. It's like it feels so uncoordinated. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like sliding this thing across
Yeah,
the table. It's like I'm waxing the
I
table.
I'm so bad at it, and I get so frustrated. I have a very bizarre ego when it comes to games,
Okay,
where I'm like, there's like games, especially like air hockey, where like it makes sense in my brain
sure,
of like take this thing, hit the other thing, and it goes in.
right.
And I'm not good at that. It's the same thing with bowling. In my head, I should not be a bad bowler.
Yeah, it's simple. Roll it down the lane.
It's simple. Roll it
Yeah,
down, and I'm one of the worst. I'm the worst bowler every time I've gone, and it's infuriating. And I refuse to go bowling because I start pouting a few frames in.
yeah.
So, Papa Shot though, I love basketball. I played basketball growing up, but I think the way to be good at that is you can't approach it like basketball.
Interesting. Okay.
You cannot have a good shot, a good form, and you have to figure out which ball is a little deflated.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's next level.
If
All
you
right.
find the one that's like a little deflated because they're coming at you.
Yeah.
But if you can find that one and go just bank it in from the top of the square. If you
Okay.
get one that's flat enough, it'll just fall. It's like a
Just
cartoon,
sinks.
just a cartoon character hitting glass. And you
Okay.
can and so that is my Papa Shot. And then the dark horse is skee ball.
I like skee
I
ball.
I am a huge fan of skee ball. Um, But another thing with skee ball, you can't go for the big points.
Sure. Yeah, keep it small.
Skee ball to me is baseball. Like you just gotta just put the bat on the ball, just get on base, put the ball in play.
Put some
You
men on.
you can't swing for the fences you can't try to go for those corners every time. It looks great with all the zeros. I don't even know how many points it's worth to get in the little hole in the
Right.
corner.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but it's like you're not gonna do it. So just get a good roll going.
Yeah, I can't help myself though. Like I mentioned skee ball. I can't help myself. I'm trying at the skee ball table, like looking at like exit velocity, launch angle. Like I'm going for those home runs.
You got to go for it once or twice. You got to scratch
Sure.
that itch. But yeah, I was never I don't know if this is a regional thing, but our elementary school would have skate nights at the skating rink.
Yeah, we did too.
Okay, so we had at Skate Country in Gainesville, and I am a terrible rollerblader. I've always been. I had never been able to stand up on them,
Yeah.
but they had a great arcade.
Oh, there you go.
And so my dad would take me and my sisters. They would go, and I would just put on roller skates and just meander on over to usually NBA Jam, or they also had the X-Men arcade game.
Okay, nice.
And I was there all night.
Just hang out there the whole time.
Just the whole time. I would find quarters. You figure out which kid is the rich kid trying to show off.
Right, right.
Kind of get some quarters from, because my dad was like, I'm not just handing you money. Like,
No, no way.
there's no way for a video game that I don't understand. No. I paid for the skates. And
Right.
so you
Yeah,
had to get creative to keep getting quarters. But
it makes sense.
yeah, that was mostly my arcade.
Yeah,
Was
it's funny.
Skate Country.
I did the same thing. I did the skating. I wasn't too bad at rollerblading. I'll tell you what though. So I learned how to like roller skate when I was young. Then I upgraded to the roller blades. And I remember when I was in middle school, they had I was in seventh grade. They had a roller night. And like, oh, awesome! I'm gonna go. And I don't know that many people at this school. It was a different school than where most of my friends in elementary school went. And I remember I got there, and then the guy's like, "Hey, we don't have any more rollerblades." I'm like, "Oh no!" So all they had was roller skates. And I don't know if anybody's ever gone from rollerblades to roller skates again. But guess what? There's not a front wheel. So I my first step just
Oh,
right in my face. I'm like, I hope no one saw. No one did, but in the moment, it feels like that was my bomb, right? Like I just bombed in front of this whole entire school on skate night, and yeah, but
not
those
skate night.
on skate night, it's like this is embarrassing. So luckily, it didn't stick with me. But yeah,
Yeah.
those roller, it's weird. I don't know if this is something that I think this is something that all roller places have, but the bathrooms are weird at roller skate places. At least the place that I've been at here in California, the stalls didn't have doors, and I heard that was a safety thing, which I'm not sure how that works. You know what I'm
So,
saying?
like you can't fall into doors, or
Or like you can't get stuck. Like if you're on your rollerblades in like a bathroom stall, there was some kind of safety thing there. But I'm like, yeah, but there's the other side of that where you're, using the stall and it's just wide open for everybody to see you. So I'm not sure where the logic is in this. Is that something that you've seen, or is this like
I
this
don't.
might have been a
I,
cheap skate place I went to? I was like, yeah, we're just not gonna put
yeah,
doors on here.
I really don't remember the Skate Country bathrooms.
Okay, we were at the arcade.
I Yeah, I was at the arcade. The only time I've seen doorless stalls is like dive bars. So I
Yeah,
don't know. And I think that's more of like to prevent cocaine use, which I don't think was too much of an issue
uh,
for middle school skate night.
maybe the parents, the teachers. I don't know, man.
The parents.
See your science teacher in there doing experiments or so-called experiments, right? Like, yeah, don't worry about what's going on here. We'll teach you us on
Yeah.
Tuesday in class. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Well, anyways, I can talk about the skate
Yeah.
thing, but yeah, let me ask you your opinion on this too, because you're like I said, you do a sports podcast. You're a big sports guy, and it's obviously sports all year round. But you guys are entering probably your really busy season with your podcast because you got college
Mhm.
football, NFL, everything. Obviously pretty soon, baseball playoffs in a month or two here. But so okay, my co-host, who's usually here on this podcast, we have a family league. It's a 10 team league. We have a family league, and it's always a struggle to find that 10th person, right? That will commit to doing it. Well,
Yeah.
the last couple of years, Deb has been kind enough to do it. We're like, that's fine. She's like, I'm not going to pay that much attention. I'm like, that's fine. We just need a warm body because the draft is in like 2 hours, and we gotta do this. Well, last year, again, doesn't pay attention, doesn't change her lineups, doesn't do anything. She won the whole freaking league. And now we're in a weird situation this year. It's like we don't none of my whole family, she's dead to my family. My wife's like, yeah, I'm done with you. Me and my brothers, my sister, my mom, dad, aunt, my brother's good friend. It's like we can't even stand the side of Deb because of what she did last year and
Mm.
won the whole league. But at the same time, we feel like we need her to come back and at least give her a shot to defend her title, even though we know she's not going to play. What are your thoughts? Because I'm sure you've played some fantasy sports. Like, I feel like we're in a weird spot here.
Yeah, that is a weird spot. So I can't stand people that auto draft. That's number one.
Good thing Deb's not here.
Yeah, well, and people who auto draft, I'm like, I'm not playing you. I'm playing ESPN's computer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I don't even consider these wins or losses for you.
Good point.
So I have tried to institute a rule. Fortunately, in my family league, we haven't had to come up with it. In a couple other leagues, we've had to enforce it, where you cannot auto draft 2 years in a row.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because I'm not gonna keep. Like there has to be a part of it where it's you.
Right. Right. It's got to
And
be something.
yeah, and I do get some leagues. You do need a warm body. And then you know what? I don't know how many people in your league listen to this, but
A few.
okay, there is a part of this where you just win every trade. You let whoever back in, they auto draft you. You know, that's a pretty good team. Because you don't care, let me take this person off your hands.
That's a good
Like
point.
it's unfair that you have them, you don't care, I care. Or don't even be honest and just be like, it's a good trade. Trust
Yeah.
me, I know it's a good trade.
I wouldn't steer you wrong. Just do it.
It's a less morally sound way of dealing with it.
It's fantasy
But
football though too. Like the morals in fantasy football are very, very loose. You know what I mean?
it is. You're still using other people's brains
Right.
to beat your cousins.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. There is now, is there a good prize for the winner, or is it just fun?
No, well, right now it's so the last couple of years it's just been fun. We've been
Yeah.
talking. I think there's gonna be a prize. I think we're gonna do money this time around. Just put the stakes a little higher. And
Yeah.
will that incentivize her? Probably not. I don't think so. Can I tell you something else? You know what made it worse last year is so she won, and that night she came over to our house to drop something off for the podcast, and she was talking with me and my wife, and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, you probably don't know this, but you won. She's like, I won. She's like, how do I log in? She didn't even know how to log in. It's like, oh, this is horrible. It was around Christmas
I
time. She's like, get out of here. We're
go.
done.
It would make me so mad.
Hurt my feelings for sure.
It
And then I had to
Yeah.
record with her the next Tuesday. I'm like, well, I can't escape this, or I can just fire
Yeah.
her as a co-host, but don't really want to do that. You know, it's too hard to find
No.
co-hosts, as we talked about earlier.
Is it harder to find a co-host or a 10th fantasy team?
We're gonna find out this year. We're gonna find out this year. And I already told her, I'm like,
the
you got to defend the title, so you're stuck with
Yeah.
it at least one more year.
The other thing you can threaten is just tell people like, hey, bottom two teams are out and we're going 8-team league next year. We're
That's not a
going
bad.
we're going we're going full relegation.
See,
Just
that's not a bad idea. That's tough too, though, because the other 9 really care. So, all right, Jordan, my
hey,
brother, I know you're listening. You're the commissioner. Let's think about who we're going to kick out.
yeah.
Maybe my
And
sister. I
you
don't
just
know.
go whoever you think, if you think you're gonna be that ninth person, then you better figure out a 10th person to get in.
Yeah, that's a good. You know what we could
Because
do? I don't know
because
if
Deb
you're.
might just knock you out.
Yeah. Well, she did, and it was a real bummer. It was a real bummer. uh, no, you know what? I think it's I've heard about this on the Bill Simmons podcast. He's in some league where they, and I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast, but they have someone that like some league that he does where every year someone's kicked out, and so
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, yeah, that might be the way to do it. So someone may just be the person. It's like John Hamm got kicked out this year. You know, some of these
Yeah.
celebrities that they do it with. It's not a bad
I
idea.
I think it's great.
It's a good call.
I think because there's the fantasy punishments. It's always weird because usually the person that comes in last doesn't care enough to like be punished.
Or follow through, right? Hey, you're supposed to get a
Yeah, or
tattoo.
like follow through. Yeah. So it's like so that's the easiest thing to do.
Sure.
Is like if you come in last, you're just not here next year.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good
but then
idea.
it does hurt when you have to get rid of somebody who just really cares and had an unlucky year with injuries or something.
Oh, I've had that a
Like,
couple of times. Yeah, I've had that a couple of
yeah,
times where that could have been me. That's where it sucks. Like you're the one that implements the rule, and then the next season it hits you like, oh no, wait. It's like, hold on.
yeah,
We were spitballing. This was an actual thing we were going to put into place.
yeah. We were just gonna see if it worked.
Yeah,
We weren't. We just wanted to test the waters.
it's like, hey, kick rocks, buddy. Get out of here. And then it's like, well, I also have to watch the draft from my couch. Yeah.
I've seen open mics be a fantasy punishment before,
Ooh, I've seen that too. I've never actually seen a
and
set, but I can imagine it's brutal.
I because the people say it because they think that's gonna save them. And there's like I've never done it because you just don't care enough, but like it makes me so mad every time.
Yeah, I bet.
Every like there's something so, and it's dumb because there's 20 names on the list. Like you don't care. Like you go to open mics to just hone your own craft. Like you
Sure.
go in selfishly.
Sure.
If you go in trying to crush at an open mic, you're gonna be disappointed 9 times out of 10.
Right.
So, but for some reason, like I'm sitting there working on my set, and this guy gets up there and he's telling terrible jokes, and he's awful, and all of his buddies are laughing with their backward hats and their quarter zips, and and then he finally goes, "This is my punishment for being bad at stand up." It's something in me, just like I immediately started like getting heated.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then the worst was I left before I was supposed to go up. I just told the host to forget it because there was a fantasy football punishment and an engagement, a proposal
Oh.
in the same open mic.
Oh.
And I was just like, I'm in no condition to perform. Like I've seen somebody use the thing that I love the most as a punishment, and then I've seen somebody else use it as like a cute joke
Oh.
to like propose to his girlfriend. So I was like, that's it. I'm gonna try again tomorrow.
Just a slap
Like,
in the face. It's
yeah,
like the
Sunday
oh
night
man.
punchline. I don't need this. I don't need this show tonight.
Right.
I'm just gonna go home.
Oh, that's brutal. I'd like that Chappelle, the Rick James skit where he says just mess up his couch. He came into your house and just started putting the money
Yes,
feet on there.
yes, that's exactly what it felt like.
Oh man, that's brutal. Well, hey man, I don't want to keep you too long because I know that you're on the East Coast and you're it's much later there than it is here. Um, so I just have a couple more for you if you don't mind. We'll just
No,
throw
let's do
a
it.
few more out here. Who are some of your favorite comedians right now? Like who are the people that you look to and just think like they're at the top of the game as far as comedy?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, Nate Bargatze is the easy answer.
Yeah, he's
He's
good.
absolutely killing it.
Yeah,
Everything he's put out is great. John Mulaney's in that same spot
yeah,
for me,
sure.
where I don't think he has put out a bad special. The hour that he is working on right now that's going to be released, I don't know when. He came through Atlanta and we went and saw him. Watching John Mulaney live, I remember thinking like, how dare I call what I do what he does? It was it was encouraging because you're seeing something you love done at the highest level.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of you that's like, who do you think you are?
How dare you? How
How
dare
dare
me?
yeah, you
Yeah.
calling yourself a ninja, you're a white belt. You're a chubby kid practicing kicks in his garage and you think you're a ninja? It's very weird.
Oh man.
And then Gary Goldman is another one that's one of my absolute favorites. It's one of the smartest comedians I've ever heard. I mean the list goes on and on. The other one I would say is Mia Jackson.
Okay.
She's from Atlanta. She had a Comedy Central special go up this year. I've opened for her a few times, and she is just incredible. And lastly, a person that our podcast all agrees is going to end his career in the conversation of greatest comedian all time, and that's Roy Wood Jr.
Oh, he's good. He's really good.
Just everything he touches turns to gold.
Yeah.
And then his last special, my wife and I watched it. It's on Amazon. We had to pause it 3 or 4 times.
Really?
Because we had laughed so hard and so long that we had laughed through the next setup.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to go back. We had to pause it, compose ourselves, and go back to start the joke over.
Wow.
It's
what better compliment
so
is that?
good. Yeah, it's just it's so good. And he's been on our podcast. Super nice guy. David's opened for him, and it's just like he's incredible live as well. So yeah, Roy Wood Jr. But if you're with your family, I mean, Bargatze's clean. Gary Goldman, The Great Depression on HBO is clean. It's a little documentary as well, about how he deals with mental health, and how he like came back from a mental health breakdown. It's very encouraging and really cool to see people doing very different things with their talent.
Right.
And it's just
impressive.
it's so cool to see. Of like, some people are like, you know what, I am a guy on stage with a mic. That is who I am for an hour.
Right.
And that is, and then there people like Gary Goldman that intercut different things, and they make it personal. And then it really is, it's an incredible time to be a comedy fan.
Oh man, you
More
have
more
so many
stuff's coming out.
options.
Yeah.
So many options. Well, and it's interesting too, and I would love to hear your take on this and how it affects your creative process and how it affects your like on stage live performance. Because obviously, one of the reasons, at least from my perspective, in my opinion, one of the reasons why it's such an amazing time if you're a fan of stand-up comedy is because it feels like every comic has a podcast, or they have a YouTube series, or they have a show of some kind. And on top of that, they do their sets, right? Their live sets. They do a tour as well. So it's like you're getting this content from your favorite comedians all the time, and they're all a little bit different. Like I know, like I've seen certain comedians where they podcast one way, but then when you watch their specials or their stand up, it's a very different feel. And so it's like you're getting two different versions of the same person, or two different sides of the same person, and all these different aspects of who they are. But I imagine that when it comes to social media, the content you put there, the podcast, all that, that's got to really stretch you as a comic, right? Because there's different forms of being funny. Like, does that affect your writing process, or do you just kind of compartmentalize, like they're all very different things, they don't affect each other?
Yeah, they're all very different. Like, stand up is the thing I care the most about.
Sure.
And I feel like everything else is an unfortunate necessity right now. Obviously I love doing the podcast, so that's not the same, but like
Sure.
online content, and like, I've been trying to post on TikTok 4 or 5 times a week now, whether it's clips or something else. And it is a very weird thing.
I hate TikTok so much.
I it's such a weird beast right now,
Yeah.
because it's becoming, one of the largest search engines, and
Yep.
comedians are selling out weekends
Right.
based off of TikTok. So
Yeah.
as much as I dislike the app and everybody that's on it,
Yeah. Yeah.
there is like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw everything against the wall.
Sure. You kind of have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I do appreciate comics, because I feel like a lot of them are more personal on podcasts.
Sure.
And then I love what conversations open up.
Right.
So, Conan O'Brien's podcast now, I think it's my favorite thing he's ever done. And I've been a Conan fan as long as I can remember. But it's because he's so good at interviewing and connecting with people.
One of the best. Yeah.
And on his talk show, it's 7 minutes. 5 minutes with a guest, and this is like 45 minutes to an hour.
Right.
With all these, and you're just like, it's one, you can just tell when people get relaxed.
Right.
And
100%.
open up. And even though it's not necessarily all personal stuff, like I love seeing that part of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, podcasts have just been incredible the past few years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's so many choices, and some people say that, like I've heard people say it's like it's a bad thing,
Yeah.
Like this is awesome. Like I find one of my favorite podcasts right now is called Are You Garbage? I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
So good.
it's my favorite podcast right now. People, my wife and my brother are probably sick of me talking about it. Like, oh, you know what I heard? They're like, yeah, we don't care anymore. You're garbage
Yeah.
for continuing to bring this up. But yeah, it's one of my favorites. But like, you know, you just find these two guys that are, you know, comedians, and they're doing this very unique thing. I love it. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Like, you just have so many options as far as, you know, what you can listen to. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's a much more personal thing, which I appreciate, because you get to see a different side of some of these people that you've admired from the stage, which is a cool thing, I think.
Yeah. And I think people bring out talent in other people.
Right.
So like Mike Birbiglia has one of my favorite podcasts too, where it's all about material and comedians like going back and forth. Like there is a part of like, I don't want to be the least funny person in this room.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. Or you can tell comics that are friends and can riff really well together.
Right.
All that kind of stuff. Sorry, my dog's kind of.
We're a dog friendly show. It's all good. We've had cats pop up on the show before. Yeah. We've had people that look like dogs or cats. It's all good.
Yeah.
Nobody specifically. Nobody specifically.
Nobody. No names.
No names.
Just no
but
names.
You know who you are. You know. They're probably saying the same thing about me. It's like, we're talking about you, bro.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I might be guilty.
Yeah, but yeah, going back, people say like, oh, well, podcasts, like, it's oversaturated, and it's like, is it oversaturated, or is this the first time in history anybody can get exactly what they want?
That's a good point.
Like is literature oversaturated? Like, yes, technically, but also now you can find a book for literally anything you want to know about.
Not a bad thing.
So as somebody who is not a great reader and zones out a lot when I see written word,
yeah,
all in on podcasts. It's been great.
That's awesome. Well, hey man, I definitely appreciate you taking some time. Like I said, I know it's late over there, so I definitely appreciate you staying up to hang out with us for a little bit and share a little bit about who you are, and what you do, and just kind of your insight into the comedy world. Uh, Again, I know we can watch Name Brand Human on YouTube, but where can they follow you? Where can they follow the podcast? Anywhere that anything you want to plug?
Yeah, podcast is 4th and 10, FORTH. That'll get you to us however you want to punch that into iTunes or Spotify. My socials, Nate Owens Comedy on Twitter, and then Instagram, and as much as I hate it, TikTok, Nathan Owens Comedy. But
good for you. We have one too. I just don't. I feel dirty every time I post a TikTok, but it's like I might as well just start an OnlyFans for the podcast. So that's how I feel.
Look, whatever puts butts in seats. If
that's true, that's true.
That's you know, if this is what I got to do to suffer for my art, I'll take it. This is people have done worse.
That's that could be a whole podcast, but about what they've done worse. 100%. Hey, like that's how you know he's passionate about what he does, because he said whatever it takes. Like you said, even if it makes you feel bad. Awesome. Well, hey, you guys, make sure you guys go follow Nate. He's a very funny comedian, great podcaster. They do a lot of great things over there, and you will not be disappointed. So, hey man, thank you so much for joining us again, and good luck with everything upcoming for you.
Thanks, man. Thanks so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable podcast.